As I mentioned earlier, we're here in Providence, and to me, Providence is about one thing. Howard Phillips Lovecraft. Let's give him...
Isn't that adorable, folks?
A healthy face.
You get to walk around all day knowing that you're in a town that is, for the rest of the world, completely identified with a agoraphobic, xenophobic, weirdo, incel psychopath.
It's cool how Maine gets Stephen King, who just now on Twitter is like, the real it is Donald Trump. And you get this freak.
Yeah, because Stephen King is like just your chill boomer uncle. You know, you can hang out with.
Nice guy.
And that's like, then there's H.P. Lovecraft, where if you met him at a family function, you would like do anything to not make eye contact.
But, you can see how he thought he was the master race. He looks like a normal person looking at himself in the back of a spoon.
I wonder why
everyone loves a nice long skull. Just a normal long skull.
I wonder why he was so obsessed with fish people.
Now... For me, if you listen to the show, you might have noticed that H.P. Lovecraft does figure somewhat prominently in our own lore and mythos, because for me, H.P. Lovecraft is one of my major problematic faves. So I think here in just outside of Providence, I think it would be appropriate to pay tribute to the master. I've put together a little something for you guys and my co-hosts who may not know all of the details of his life.
Yeah, Felix only reads the Quran, and I only read the Financial Times. So we're jumping in this with just completely cold.
I also read the Financial Times, but it has, informed by my wisdom from the Quran.
Right. Cats won't walk on the Financial Times. People don't know that.
They respect the pink.
Yeah.
Felix only reads the Financial Times from Marmaduke.
Well, Marmaduke made a great point about the Turkish lira float the other day.
Okay, so this is a segment I'd like to call Facts Concerning the Life of Howard Phillips Lovecraft. The most important thing to keep in mind as you learn about the life of H.P. Lovecraft and consider his oeuvre of work is that he really is the portrait of the proto-incel. He really was one of he was what would become, if he were born in a different era, an alt-right Reddit guy. He was a poster. He was a poster before his time, but writing spooky stories is what you had to do before the internet. Before you could post on forums, you had to write short stories.
Can you imagine
He was a Reddit poll with creepypasta crossover.
Can you imagine the horror of that? Instead of just going onto your computer and just to anyone who clicks on the page, just giving them all of your wisdom about skull shapes and racial destinies, you had to sit down at some fucking Underwood fucking typewriter and clack out 500 pages of allegorical prose about squid monsters who are actually Italian, and then send it to 500 incredibly shady fucking New York pulp magazine publishers. They maybe one of them would give you a cent for it.
and if you wanted to punctuate your writer's block by jacking off, you had to send away to Siam for a drawing of a tit.
Grim times indeed.
But if you consider his body of work, if you've read all of it as I have, you're struck by the fact that even though I enjoy it very much, his work featured basically all of the same themes that obsess the alt-right today. His work is all about this sort of the unseen threats to Western civilization and the cultural and racial degeneration inherent in that. He was obsessed with, the loss of Western culture and the invasion by sort of otherworldly outside forces. And he was, a fanatical racist and lunatic. And, often when we discuss writers from, the 1920s or a different era, you can say, and some, not without cause, that, maybe we shouldn't, judge writers of a different era by the same standards as today. But no, H.P. Lovecraft was fucking insanely racist even by the standards of the fucking 1920s.
Yeah. Virgil, remember we had an idea for a sketch. Remember?
Yes.
It was going to be a fake documentary interviewing.
Yeah. The idea was that we would have to do reenactments of this.
Yeah.
But the idea was that all of Lovecraft's stories were just explicitly racist. and he just had one editor who changed like Italians to fish monster to the deep ones, and changed
all of the
He did word find and replace.
yes, basically.
all of that stuff, like the Cthulhu, Fathagan, Nog, the Log Thugoth, like that weird, slur, like speech that he does in that. Those are all just explicit slurs before the editor got first pass on
Maybe
it.
they were Italian meats. He was
it was all just
Soprasetta prosciutto.
It's probably how he heard Yiddish.
the Necronomicon was originally the Quran.
It was written by quote,
Mad Arab.
the Mad Arab,
Yeah.
Abdul Azrahad. Just a few notes on H.P. Lovecraft's completely hysterical racism. Reading here, it says, from the start, Lovecraft did not hold all white people in uniform high regard, but rather esteemed the English people and those of English descent. He praised non-WASP groups such as Hispanics and Jews. However,
You know what? It's nice to be appreciated.
Yeah.
However, his private writings on groups such as Irish Catholics, German immigrants, and African Americans were consistently negative.
I mean, okay, the first one, yes.
Yeah.
Obviously correct. They are the plague of this fucking... You know. You're from fucking New England. You fucking know. Irish fucking Americans are basically like the worst people in the world.
Okay, so let's dive into the life of H.P. Lovecraft. Like I said, keep in mind, proto-poster of the era that we all live in now. He really, a lot of the times he's credited with giving birth to the entire genre of cosmic horror. But what he really did was give birth to the cosmic horror of internet posting culture and personalities. So he was born in 1890, right here in Providence, Rhode Island, or right next door to here in Providence, Rhode Island. Wouldn't you know it, he had a sad and tragic childhood.
Who didn't back then?
Yeah.
Like literally, you were born. You had 17 siblings, and 15 of them like didn't make it to age 2.
You somehow
And
got syphilis off of a toilet seat.
Yeah. Your dad worked at a dirt factory and like got caught in the gears when you were 9.
You're almost right, except for the fact that he was an only child. Let's get to the syphilis part.
Well, yeah, by the end of it.
10 little Indians.
So his father was a traveling salesman employed by the Gorham Manufacturing Company that developed a type of mental disorder caused by untreated syphilis when he was around the age of 3.
His dad was syphilitic Jack Lemmon.
I'm telling you, I need those.
I need
those,
the leads.
I need the Glengarry leads. I need them. Do you
There's
smell
bugs
toast?
under my skin. I need the leads.
Purple monkey dishwasher. I need the leads.
First prize is a Cadillac. Second prize, treatment for your syphilis. Third prize is you're fired. Okay, so he developed a mental disorder due to untreated syphilis when Howard was around the age of 3. In 1893, his father became a patient at the Butler Hospital in Providence and remained there until his death in 1898.
I'm sure
Shout
that
out
was
to the mental hospital for the 19th
Yeah, we are
century, I
fans
guess.
of the Butler.
every.
Yo, that place is haunted as fuck, yo. Still haunted.
I'm sure that was a great hospital for his dad to be in at that time in the world where just every doctor was Mangala.
Lovecraft's mother, Sarah Susan Phillips, never exhibited any of the symptoms of the disease, leading to questions regarding the intimacy of their relationship. In 1969, Sonia
Yo,
Green...
your dad got no pussy.
That was the first thing that made him dark. Like it black-pilled him. He saw that his dad was cocked.
In 1969, Sonia Green, H.P. Lovecraft's former wife, ventured that Susan was a, quote, touch-me-not wife, and that Winfield, his father, being a traveling salesman, took his sexual pleasures wherever he could find them. Lovecraft
And
himself...
sometimes he fucked a squid, and that didn't affect Lovecraft at all.
Lovecraft himself called his mother at one point in a 1937 letter a touch-me-not, noting that after his early childhood, she avoided all physical contact with him. This is contrary to his mother's treatment of the young Lovecraft soon after his father's breakdown. According to accounts of family friends, his mother doted over the young Lovecraft to a fault, pampering him and never letting him out of his sight. I'm sure that didn't warp him at all.
Literally pamperings, as in diapers.
If we have any parents or soon-to-be parents in the crowd, if you have a kid, and you're the mom, make sure to literally never let him leave your side. He'll grow up to be a famous author like this. Awesome.
After his father's hospitalization, Lovecraft resided in the family home with his mother and his maternal aunts, Lillian and Annie, and his maternal grandparents, Whipple and Roby.
Come on.
No.
We are indeed on our way now, Ducky.
Lovecraft later recollected that after his father's illness, his mother was, quote, permanently stricken with grief. He also said, as a child, he was enamored with the Roman pantheon of gods, accepting them as genuine expressions of divinity and foregoing his Christian upbringing.
Oh my God, he's a marble bust Twitter avatar guy.
Yes, this is where I'm going with this. This is proto-alt-right shit. They like the traditions of Christianity upholding the West, but deep down inside they hate it because essentially Christianity counsels us to love and help the weak, whereas the old pagan gods of Europe told us to kill and enslave them.
Yeah. No, it's the Edward Gibbon thesis, basically, yeah. And they love those guys. My favorite is when they have Trajan as their fucking avatar, the guy who was just fucked literally every man who he met. Literally every one of them.
This is even more fucking Reddit. Are you ready for this? He recalls at 5 years old being told Santa Claus did not exist and retorting by asking why God is not equally a myth.
Boom. Owned by your own logic. Good day, madam. You have been owned.
To be fair, I think most kids actually arrive at that conclusion. They just eventually stop caring because they become adults.
Some of them become Sam Harris fans, though.
Right.
No, I think that's true. It's when you realize Santa isn't real, you do have that moment.
What else have I been lied to
it's
about?
Who else isn't real? And then you're just I'm not going to think about that. I'm just going to... I was worried about it for a minute, but thankfully I hit puberty, so I'm just going to be jacking off for the next 5 years.
Yeah, you just stay busy. You find a hobby.
Exactly.
And then you reach, your mid-20s, and you find out the only true thing is astrology, and you're fine.
So Cthulhu is his flying spaghetti monster.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
Literally is. Holy
Oh, my
shit.
God. Whoa.
Ready for more epic Reddit bacon drama?
Yeah, what was the asshole nerd hat back then? Because everyone had to wear them. Was it oh great, he's another propeller hat atheist? That hat they think looks so cool.
Get a load of this guy in his fucking colonial tricorner.
One of those trepanned atheists.
Yeah, the atheists back then just had a fucking divot out of their skull.
That's what you had instead of gauges back then. That's how you knew. That's how you were a scene kid in the 1800s.
That was body modification.
Yeah.
Okay, here's more epic Reddit shit. At the age of 8, he took a keen interest in the sciences, particularly astronomy and chemistry. He also examined the anatomy books available to him in the family library, learning the specifics of human reproduction that had yet to be explained to him.
Yeah, all those pages were stuck together.
And he found that it, quote, virtually killed my interest in the subject.
No one
Yeah,
wants.
women. I thought women are cool, but did you know they're full of guts?
I shan't be getting up in those guts, madam.
To be one of those guys who lies about fucking porn stars back then, you had to be like, yeah, me and my cousin, we actually met the girl from the anatomy textbook and we fucked her. That was Lisa Ann.
Again, would it surprise you to learn he was a very sickly child who was plagued throughout his entire education
Oh, but he
by...
seems so robust.
He was plagued throughout his entire education by health crises of various kinds. In 1908, prior to his high school graduation, he had another episode, though this instance was seemingly more severe than any prior. The exact circumstances and causes remain unknown. The only direct record are Lovecraft's own later correspondence, wherein he described it variously being as a nervous collapse and some sort of breakdown, in one letter blaming it on the stress of high school, despite his enjoying it.
Look, I don't know what happened, but it made him real weird.
Everyone seemed like their lives seemed to be broken down into episodes back then. I guess it was like the only way you could deal with the world was having a psychotic break every 2 years. I mean, maybe there's something to it. He got a lot done.
In another letter concerning the events of 1908, he notes, I was and am prey to intense headaches, insomnia, and general nervous weakness, which prevents my continuous application to anything.
He has chronic Lyme.
Oh my God, he was on the pain internet.
Mm-hmm.
An account
He
from
was a spoonie.
Yes, he was a spoonie. He had no fucking spoons left. An account from high school classmate described Lovecraft as exhibiting, quote, terrible tics, and that at times he'd be sitting in his seat and he'd suddenly up and jump. Think how fucking boring school was back then. You didn't even have a substitute teacher day where they wheeled in a TV and just let you watch a fucking movie.
You couldn't play Fortnite. It was awful.
They also didn't know anything. So your classes would be like, all right, so it's like you got the skin, then you got the veins under there. All right, you're a doctor now.
Here's your ether.
Here's more internet bullshit. Lovecraft started out as a would-be journalist, joining the United Amateur Press Association in 1914. The following year, he launched his self-published magazine, The Conservative.
Oh my God! Failed journalist, self-published, read my Medium post. It's all there.
Oh my God! This is
I'm telling you,
uncanny. Holy shit!
This is the blueprint. He was the old god that opened this door into our world and spawned a fucking zillion fucking awful children, awful unholy children.
Bursting like spider eggs from his womb.
Not only that, check this out. He was also a compulsive letter to the editor writer, which was the early 20th century version of posting.
He was in the comments section constantly.
He was hectoring the New York Times to talk about Italian no-go no-Rooney zones.
Check this out. In 1911, Lovecraft's letters to the editor began appearing in pulp and weird fiction most notably Argosy. A 1913 letter critical of Fred Jackson, a prominent writer for Argosy, started Lovecraft down a path that would greatly affect his life. Lovecraft described Jackson's stories as, quote, trivial, effeminate, and in places coarse.
Got him.
You know how that writing is coarse, but also kind of gay?
Continuing, Lovecraft said that Jackson's characters exhibit, quote, delicate passions and emotions proper to Negroes and anthropoid apes.
In this time, Lovecraft was also kicked off his professional Jacks team for calling another player a Bavarian.
He wrote letters to the editor criticizing the forced diversity of the film Man Boards Train.
Look, they keep drawing Nancy with a bigger and bigger nose. You know what that means?
So his posting sparked a nearly year-long feud in the letters section of Argosy between Lovecraft, along with his occasional supporters, and the majority of readers critical of his view of Jackson.
Never stop posting!
Never stop posting.
I will not log off!
Even if everyone hates you, and it says his occasional supporters. So even back then, he had a clique of fellow assholes co-signing his fucking screeds. Check this out, though. This is fucking hilarious. Lovecraft's biggest critic was John Russell, who often replied in verse, and to whom Lovecraft felt compelled to reply because he respected Russell's writing skills. This is the Chad writer who's just winding him up every fucking time by doing a limerick in response to his fucking impassioned pleas about anthropoid apes.
Well, that was how you were like a white SoundCloud rapper back then. I'm lyrical.
Okay. Not only that, but another great thing about posting is having friends on the internet, right?
Of course.
People you don't know, and
Yeah, your band of brothers.
buddies.
yeah, people you don't know, and then one day you meet them and start an incredibly successful podcast.
Yeah.
Called Pod Save America.
One of his posting buddies, with whom he carried out a lengthy correspondence using the posting service, the U.S. Mail, was Robert E. Howard, who you might know as the author of the Conan the Barbarian stories. Robert E. Howard was also a guy obsessed with masculinity, and like in the Conan stories, they extol this kind of Hyperborean masculinity, and Conan would often fight these sort of degenerated ape species of people. He was also, the real Robert E. Howard was also a complete butterball and mama's boy from Texas who lived with his mother. Check this out. He carried on a correspondence with Robert E. Howard up until the morning of June 11th, 1936. Robert E. Howard had been caring for his mother the entire time, who was suffering from tuberculosis. On that morning, he was nearing the end. Howard asked one of his mother's nurses, a Mrs. Green, if she would ever regain consciousness. When she told him no, he walked out to his car in the driveway, took the pistol from the glove box, and shot himself in the head. Sorry, I thought that would be a bigger laugh line there.
Look, it's been long enough. It's not too soon or anything. By the way, I'm looking at a picture of this guy, and you're right about being a little bit of a chubby butterball. He was also literally a fedora guy.
Yes,
But everyone was back then.
that was
That's
the style.
Going bit like seeing a picture of your grandfather from the 30s. You fucking MRA, PUA piece of shit.
No. You took off your hat for a portrait. You definitely took off your hat for a portrait. He was the guy who did not.
Maybe he had a bad hairline.
Here's what I'm getting at. Here's what I'm getting about with these two guys. They're intense internet friends. They're intense posting friends, both obsessed.
They're both Fayad
Nothing
warriors.
wrong with that.
Yeah.
They're both obsessed with like masculinity,
Racial hygiene,
and like the degeneration of the species, despite being two absolute fucking dorks living with their mom, literally living in their tubercular mother's basement.
Yes.
I do want to say I have always loved the phrase from back then, racial hygiene.
Yeah.
It implies like the existence of a racial slob. You have genotypes all over the table. That's like my apartment, but with haplogroups.
To be fair, yeah.
Oh, they're everywhere. He's just piling up the haplogroups. I just kick them under the couch at this point.
So the horror magazine Weird Tales bought some of Lovecraft's story in 1923, giving him his first taste of literary success. The following year, he married Sonia
That was
Green.
weird Twitter.
And he only had like 3 tweets.
The following year...
Also, by the way, with Shadow over Innsmouth, he invented Otherkin.
The following year, he married Sonia Green, a childhood acquaintance from a wealthy Rhode Island family. Lovecraft's aunts disapproved of the relationship with Sonia, but Lovecraft and Green were married on March 3rd, 1924, and he relocated to her Brooklyn apartment at 793 Flatbush Avenue. I looked this up on Google Maps today. That's in Prospect Lefferts Garden, right on the corner of Prospect Park, and the building, I went to the street view, is currently a Chinese food restaurant, a liquor store, and a hair braiding salon. 3 things that would have fucking horrified H.P. Lovecraft.
Well, Lovecraft famously, a lot of his stories he wrote in the cornrows period of his authorship.
Yeah, but here's the thing. So, we've all been listening along to these tales and making fun of H.P. Lovecraft, but now we're getting to the part where he moves to New York and fucking hates it, and Felix is like, hold on a minute. Let's hear him out. Let's hear him out.
Look, okay, some things they age poorly, but some ideas are timeless. That's all I'm going to say.
Wouldn't you know it, his marriage broke up after 2 years due to his wife's various illnesses. Again, everyone was fucking sick all the time back then, and financial difficulties. She relocated to Cincinnati and then later to Cleveland. As she followed work, basically. Adding to the daunting reality of failure in a city with a large immigrant population, Lovecraft's single-room apartment later at 169 Clinton Street in Brooklyn Heights.
What?
Yeah, Chris has walked by this theater. It's right by the Court Street Theater in Brooklyn, if you know where that is or ever want to see a movie in Brooklyn. Not far from the working-class waterfront neighborhood of Red Hook. The apartment was burgled, leaving him with only the clothes he was wearing.
That's literally, that theater is the theater I go to smoke weed during a matinee. It's justice.
After he got burgled, Lovecraft famously wrote the article, How I Lost My White Guilt.
Again, it's the same thing. You get victimized by petty crime in the city once, and you develop this fantastical cosmic mythology of like racial violation and horror.
How I lost my non-tentacled guilt.
I love how back then, like, part of being racist was being racist to Germans. Like, that's what an insane hierarchy it was.
They had a whole elaborate organization.
Felix is exactly right. Lovecraft hated and feared anything and anyone that was not of good old New England stock. And like Felix, too, he also hated everything about New York City.
Look, okay, you know how Hitler invented the Autobahn? Like, okay, sometimes bad people have good ideas.
Will, was that Lovecraft's only wife, or did he remarry?
He never remarried. That was his only wife and relationship. And by the way, Alan Moore, in doing his own research on the life of H.P. Lovecraft, claims that it was a celibate marriage and that H.P. Lovecraft only touched his wife one time, and it was on her hand. This is Alan Moore, okay?
That was second base.
One of my favorite...
Yo, get you a touch me not, girl.
That's Chad Posture. I don't know what you're talking
One of my favorite stories about that marriage is Lovecraft was, at times anti-Semitic, and he would
At
go
times, all
off
times.
on these... Well, I mean, Will says at the beginning that, he actually liked Jews, but that sounds like
I'm sure it
bullshit
was
to
like
me.
he said he liked them by saying, yeah, they're good with money or something like that.
Yeah. He would go off on these tirades about Jews while his wife is in the room, and she would have to remind him, honey, I'm half Jewish, remember?
And then,
Don't feel bad for her. She married a psychopathic incel.
I mean,
You
and then,
made your bed, honey.
and then in his arguments in the letters to the editor comments, he'd be like, by the way, I'm not anti-Semitic. The woman I'm married to is half Jewish.
I never touch her.
Dude, that literally happened to that alt-right podcast guy.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, you're right.
What is it? The Right Stuff podcast?
Yeah.
Mike Pinovich.
Mike Pinovich. It came out that his wife was like a quarter Jewish,
Yeah.
and he had to apologize to all of his
He did do
listeners.
that.
I
Yeah.
promise to do better.
But no, Amber's right. You can't really have any sympathy for the wife because at some point they went on a date and like he panicked
about
and
her
ran away
racial hygiene.
and took a scalding shower because he accidentally shook hands with a Cornishman. And like if that's not a red flag, I don't know what it is.
Oh yeah, I'm a racist loser. How about I tell that to my Jewish wife, whom I'm holding hands with right now?
Time to go stare at my hot wife, losers. So like, if that was Lovecraft, what was like an annoying, performatively woke guy back then? He like, it was just like, oh yeah, I went to dinner with this guy and he just made a big show about how he wouldn't shoot an Irishman on sight.
Will Rogers.
Oh yeah. Will Rogers, I guess he was like, well, who's the Matt guy? Matt, the woke guy from Orange Is the New Black.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, McGorry.
Yeah,
Matt
Matt
McGorry,
McGorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Will Rogers is Matt McGorry. I buy that. That's
Yeah.
a good parallel.
Okay. So he lived in New York and wrote several short stories about New York, which sort of captured his horror and disgust.
Well, he had a lot of time indoors.
Yeah. This quote sums up his feelings about New York. And honestly, this is for Felix. This is dedicated to Felix here. My coming to New York had been a mistake. For whereas I had looked for poignant wonder and inspiration, I had found instead only a sense of horror and oppression which threatened to master, paralyze, and annihilate me.
Two? That's two things he got right?
I love how like for H.P. Lovecraft, like that horror was like created by this deep psychic revulsion at anyone who deviated from this very narrow WASP conception of humanity. For Felix, it's because his fucking Grubhub order was 10 minutes late.
Well, yeah.
No, it's not that. It's not that.
To be fair, Felix also hates the Bavarians.
No, Lovecraft was mad
dude.
because the ping on the telegraph line sucked. He couldn't play his tic-tac-toe games. People were he was losing to children across in the Orient, celestial children at tic-tac-toe and correspondence chess.
Dude, you are so lucky that the telegram service lagged my fucking shit.
That's the thing. Felix will tell you guys, he will launch into these Baroque denunciations of New York. They can go on for 20 minutes. But honestly, if they had Seoul, South Korea level internet, he would never complain once.
Yeah, no, I'm a simple man. I hate the high population density of New York, but it's you can live through anything if you know that your shots are hitting.
So after his marriage and career in New York failed, Lovecraft returned home to here, Providence, Rhode Island, and began work on all of his most well-known and well-liked stories, including The Call of Cthulhu, At the Mountains of Madness, Whisper in the Dark. I could go on and on.
All of them are basically...
Shadow over Innsmouth.
Yeah, everyone you could go or for the title, it could just be, an Irishman.
Lovecraft was never able to provide for even basic expenses by selling stories and doing paid literary work for others. He lived frugally, subsisting on an inheritance that was not nearly depleted by the time he died. He sometimes went without food to be able to pay for the cost of mailing letters.
Oh my God, he starved for posting.
Dude, there are kids, there are uncountable numbers of weirdo kids in this country right now that are foregoing food to play video games and post on the internet.
Yes, it's I don't need to eat the next week. I need that
Mayonnaise.
Fortnite skin. Yeah.
Okay, well...
I need the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man Fortnite skin.
Okay, well, troops aren't the only people that sacrifice.
Just rail thin, but blissfully happy because you finally unlock the Logan Paul skin on Fortnite.
I need the Zoot Suit skin for my diorama.
Eventually, he was forced to move to meager lodgings with his surviving aunt.
Oh, wow.
Why does he need an older woman with him at all times?
Because he's a weird incel fail son that
He
needs to be
needs
doted
someone
on.
to bring him Mountain
This
Dew
shitty-
Code Red at all times.
This shitty apartment is okay, but what it really needs is a weird, looming, hectoring aunt.
Yo, I'm about to go beast mode on the Prussians. I need my aunt there, though.
He was also deeply affected by the suicide of his friend and correspondent, Robert E. Howard. In early 1937, he was diagnosed with cancer of the small intestine and suffered from malnutrition as a result. He lived in constant pain until his death on March 15, 1937, in Providence. In according with his lifelong scientific curiosity, he kept a diary of illness until close to the moment of his death. He even posted about dying.
It's like Total Biscuit.
Who is that?
They get it.
Oh, he was at... Oh, I forgot he died.
Don't explain it. It's a little treasure. It's a little gift for the people who got it.
Okay.
You and me, fam. You and me, fam.
All right, now we have 2 Don't Clip It's for tonight.
Okay, but what was his cat's name?
You're not going to trick me with this
okay,
one.
look,
Amber.
look.
You are not. I'm
need
too
to
smart.
know.
When you're on the way home, and you're looking up the other thing that we've alluded to, but
So
couldn't say on stage.
Lovecraft had a black cat. It's fine.
Look
Yeah,
it up
it's
on the
fine.
way home. The cat is also featured in one of his best stories, Rats in the Walls. I'm not going to say it.
What? Didn't you try to get somebody by making them name Bobby Schmurder's big song?
No,
last
Matt. That's
night?
what Matt did to me last night.
Oh, Matt, how did you even know what that song was? You looked that up to try to get
No,
Will.
I thought Matt was trying to get me because I made a reference.
No, I literally was asking.
No,
I don't know
yeah.
who any of
I
these
should-
people
No,
are.
it's not a trick. He's just guileless and has never heard a rap song that was made after 1988.
No. Wait, hold on a minute. Stone Cold Rhymin' by Young MC came out in, I think, 1992.
Yeah, when we're off stage, we're just constantly conspiring to deceive each other, trick each other into saying various cuss words and racial slurs.
Okay, gang. that was facts concerning the life of one Howard Phillips Lovecraft.